Hello people of the internet, this is Kaiju Noir, and welcome to my very first video game review. And here with me is the one and only David Joshua Hernandez, aka Gorizard.
I should have a catchphrase given that I had 24 hours to prepare, but I don't.
Well, you've had like several catchphrases, or like you used to make jokes, and you could have picked any single one of them to be a catchphrase.
I know, but I don't want to rehash myself like, Fat Bill.
Wait a minute, you do have a catchphrase, don't you always greet us with "wha-should"? Whatever that
That's
means.
That's not a catchphrase, it's more like...
Yes, it is. It's a greeting.
That's how I say hi to a lot of people.
So why don't you say that to say hi to the people of the internet?
Because then it'll get stale.
Right. Okay, so anyways, we are here to talk about the PlayStation 4's Godzilla game, which came out a couple of weeks ago as of this recording. So at this point, David and I, or, Gorizard and I, we had a lot of time to get our hands on this game. We played it many times through, and we have a lot to say about this, because this game has gotten quite a lot of attention, and not the good kind, if you catch my drift. So this Godzilla game is actually the second one in Japan, because last year there was a PlayStation 3 Godzilla game where you only play as Godzilla and Godzilla 2014, and you basically go around, destroying generators and gaining energy and fighting other monsters. So a year later, which is, 2015, Japan, Bandai specifically, they created the sequel called Godzilla Versus, this time on the PlayStation 4, same game, but basically now you can play as those monsters that you fight as, and of course there's more monsters to choose from, a wider array of monsters than in the first game. So that second game, Godzilla Versus, came over here in to America as simply Godzilla. Meanwhile, the PlayStation 3 Godzilla game from last year is available also in America, but for download only on the PlayStation Network on the PS3. So, yeah, I remember, I knew, David, you gave me the chance to play the demo thanks to your Japanese account, so I guess we both had a good idea of what the first game from last year was like, right?
Right.
And what were your, first impressions when you played that demo, and did you see an overall improvement here with the new game for the PS4?
Well, the first time I played the game, which was the Japanese version, the demo version, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because I am so used to the game mechanics of the Atari video games, destroy a monster, save the Earth, Unleashed.
Right.
And playing the demo, which, if you played the actual game now, it's basically the same controls, the same mechanics as that Japanese demo.
Right.
So not a lot of things have changed in terms of the controls, but still, they were confusing at first because they have this weird way of how you turn around. You press the
L1 and R1 buttons.
The R1, L1 buttons, and it was such a weird thing at first. So it took a while to get used to. And I actually ended up playing the demo a few times, to get used to it, even though the actual game was coming to the United States way later. Mm-hmm. But at the time I was contemplating about whether getting the Japanese version, but then eventually I convinced myself to just wait. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing I did, because the PS4 version that we got here in the West is an improvement, more or less, over that Japanese demo that I played.
Uh-huh. Well, I gotta say thank you so much for giving me the chance to play that demo, because I was able to get acquainted with the controls right away, but I still had trouble because, yes, you're right, it's very unconventional. I mean, they do treat Godzilla more like a tank, where you have to manually turn him before moving him in the direction. But the most confusing aspect for me, anyways, was the fact that no matter what position, no matter what direction Godzilla's facing relative to the camera, the directions on the analog stick are always the same. So pushing forward on the analog stick will always make Godzilla move forward, which gets really confusing in certain instances. Like, say there's a moment where Godzilla is facing the camera, aka facing you, the player. Your gamer instinct would cause you to make you believe that by pressing back on the analog stick, that will make Godzilla move towards you. But it doesn't. And if Godzilla's facing you, pushing back on the analog stick will make Godzilla move back away from you. So it's like, even though you want him to go forward, you're accidentally making him go backwards, if that makes any sense.
I had that same problem with the PS4 version.
Yeah, because because with the right stick, you're allowed to move the camera in any direction for a better view, which unfortunately kind of like screws up your perception as to how you're supposed to move him. Like, let's say you move the camera to where Godzilla is facing left, so your instinct is, if I push left on the analog stick, that'll make Godzilla move left or move forward. But no, by pushing left, you're making Godzilla move to the side, shimmy to the side, moving towards you. So you have to push forward to make him go left on screen, and that's where the confusion comes in. Now, I think it was by the time I played the game for maybe about an hour and a half, by the time I finally I got fully used to the controls. How long did it took for you to get acquainted with them?
I had to play the entirety of the demo at least 2 or 3 times to get acquainted with the controls. Because the first time I fought a monster in the demo, which I think it was Hedorah, I died. I instantly died because I was still a noob with those game mechanics. And like I said, I was so used to the Atari games, and with the Atari games, there's so much more liberties in terms of combos that you can use. And with the
controls here, they're like much more simplified and strict.
Right. It's basically like playing a Super Nintendo game.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, where I guess so. Where you have a set control scheme that can't be customized really in any way.
Right. I mean, there are some monsters, and I'm talking about the PS4 version right now.
Okay.
That they do have some combos of their own. I mean, they're not really combos, but if you use them in the right way, they could be considered combos. Like Destroyer, for example, Anguirus, or even Batra. Even 2014 to some extent, because I tend to use 2014 a lot when it comes to versus mode.
That is true. They all have their different... for the basic control scheme is that you have a weak attack, a strong attack, a projectile attack, and the X button, which either makes some characters dash or makes some other characters jump or, in some cases, fly. And there are characters that have different combos depending on which combination of attacks that you perform. Say you're able to do like a weak attack and immediately follow it up with a strong attack, then immediately follow it up with a projectile attack, and whatever combination, any sort of combination like that. So far, I think yeah, you're right. The game is very, very basic. There aren't any liberties, as you said, with the games in terms of the combos and in terms of strategy, because a lot of the time I tend to rely on spamming the same attack over and over again in order to beat my opponents.
I think that's where the criticism comes from. The game is too repetitive. You have to rely on those same controls, and it does get repetitive.
And I think the biggest problem with this sort of fighting system is the fact that, as some others have pointed out, there's no real block or counter system. There's no way. There's no way to defend yourself from monsters, because there's a lot of times in my playthrough of the game I have been pushed into a corner and given no opportunity whatsoever to protect myself from a monster attack. I mean, there are 2 kinds of projectile attacks. There's one projectile attack where it's basically a beam attack, and then there's the one that's similar to Godzilla's nuclear pulse, where you just unleash a force field that slightly pushes away the monster. So I think the developers of this game were thinking that force field attack that all the monsters have is good enough to be counted as your defense, because it supposedly gives you a small window of opportunity to get some space between you and your opponent. But unfortunately, because the force field is tied to the same meter that you use for your projectile attacks, which I believe do the best damage when not spamming your one overpowered move. It's hard to rely on the force field if you can't use it all the time. It's kind of like I know this game, it's really weird. This game tries to be both a fighting game and a beat 'em up game, like an action beat 'em up game, but I don't think the game really succeeds at either one per se, because even with a classic beat 'em up, like let's say out of the blue, Turtles in Time or whatever, there is like a way to avoid enemies because you're able to move fast enough, or a fighting game like Street Fighter, you're able to block, whenever you can. But this game offers like neither option. It doesn't give you the ability to successfully run away from your opponents, nor protect yourself from opponents. So you're just sitting there having to spam your move, being forced to spam your move before the other monsters can spam theirs.
I've described this game to my friends as similar to Pokemon, where the whole purpose of the main game is to evolve your monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you know this, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that the more you evolve your monster, you can like extend the breath gauge?
Right. There is a mode called Evolution Mode that you use to like throughout the game, especially during the main campaign. You gain points depending on which monsters you fight and which monster you play as, and using those points, which in the game they refer to them as cells. So if you beat Mothra, you get Mothra cells. If you beat Rodan, you get Rodan cells. If you fight Mechagodzilla, you get Mechagodzilla parts. If you defeat Jaguar, you get Jaguar parts. So you use these cells and parts as like currency, in-game currency, to purchase upgrades for your monsters, giving them multiple opportunities to use their projectile attack, or gives them extra moves in the case of Godzilla, Burning Godzilla, and Godzilla 64, and also for some reason unlock figurines for diorama mode, but we'll get into that later. I do like that idea of being able to upgrade your monsters, because it gives you the incentive to play through the game multiple times, just so you can upgrade your monster to make it more powerful. The what was it? The main problem I have with in terms of like the game is that because the biggest problem I have in terms of like upgrading your monsters is that because a lot of the upgrades focus so much on upgrading your projectile attacks, that this leads to an even more imbalanced fighting game, because at that point you're just going to be spamming that beam attack over and over again, which I suppose is a lot of fun for single player mode. It's not that much fun competitively when you're fighting against other players.
Right. When the first week that the game was released and I got it,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say I was kind of addicted to the game, because I kept on playing it day and night, and I looked at the clock, I was like, wait, it's been 4 hours?
Yeah, that was kind of my case too.
It's because I kept wanting to evolve my monster,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, my monster was Godzilla 64,
Uh-huh.
and now I realize it was a big waste of time, because that version of Godzilla is such a waste, because he's so weak.
And his beam attack is that classic Misty Spray, which has no shit range.
It also has little to absolutely no effect on your enemies at all.
Mm-hmm.
When I played as 64 Godzilla, I had to rely on the atomic pulse rather than the atomic breath.
Mm-hmm. You know what's really weird? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, that was the first monster I maxed out, and then I realized how overpowered Godzilla 14 is, and I was like, I should have overpowered that monster first.
Yeah.
Max them out first, I mean.
Oh yeah, a big problem I also have in terms of like the fighting mechanics is that when you're a bigger monster fighting against smaller monsters, either you have a much easier time or a much harder time. Because there are times where I was, say, Kiryu, and I was fighting against Larva Mothra, and I could not hit her. No matter which attack I did, I could not hit her. So the only attack I could use was was like the force field attack.
Right. There are some monsters that move slow, like Godzilla.
Uh-huh.
And then there are some that move extremely fast, like Mothra and Batra and their larva and adult forms.
Oh yeah, Batra in both larva and adult form kept kicking my ass over and over again just because of how quick that monster was able to pull off his moves.
Batra and Anguirus are the monsters that I find most annoying, especially with the going up against the computer or someone else online, because it seems like their attacks, not only did they cause a lot of damage, but they're really, really fast to, like, they have really fast response time. Mm-hmm. Another issue I have with the game is the response of the controls. Like, I played with Godzilla 2014, right? Mm-hmm. And whenever I charge, he takes his sweet time to get back up. Mm-hmm. And I have to wait. Every time I press a button, it would be unresponsive. Mm-hmm. I have to wait until he gets back up so I can perform another attack. Mm-hmm. And here's another reason why the Atari games are so much better. The response time for those monsters are immediate. Like, you don't have to wait for, the character, the computer in this case that you're controlling, to, get back up or something. Like, let's say if I press X and then I press A on the controller, it does so immediate. With this game, I guess the button for charging is X. After I press X and then I press like a different button, it's unresponsive. It doesn't do anything until the charge has ended.
I've definitely experienced that before in the past, where there's always some, like, maybe a second delay between an attack that, between the button input and the actual attack itself. Let's say I'm playing as Mechagodzilla and I want to use the finger missiles, so I press forward circle or back circle, and so there's a little animation that he does to prepare for that missile attack, but he'll probably end up getting attacked by a monster before he has time to use that attack.
Right, that's another problem I have with the game, is that there are some buttons that take too long to respond, and it leaves you prone to attacks.
Mm-hmm. Now,
another problem I have...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say another problem I have is that there are some... Every time you perform something, there's also the high chance that it's going to get countered. Like, I've seen this done a lot in versus mode. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say someone charges at me, because I played with Godzilla 2014, like I said, on versus online. And whenever they charge, I could just break it by just punching them.
Yeah.
That's another reason how overpowered Godzilla 2014 is. Mm-hmm. But I saw that with other monsters too, especially like monsters like Biolante and Destroya, where they can break your attack.
Right, and that's happened to me so many times, no matter how good of a player you are, because there is no way to defend yourself in this game. Now, did it ever seem to you like whenever you're playing the story mode or King of Kaiju mode, did it ever seem like the AI was specifically made to be overpowered? I'm not talking about the random moments where you face off against a 100-meter version of that monster. No, I'm talking about, like, did it feel like the AI was somehow able to produce energy projectile attacks at a much faster rate than you could?
I think so. The first time I encountered that was on versus online mode, where someone used their breath gauge against me, and then like 5 seconds later they did it again, which usually is like 10 seconds or so, or even more, for your breath gauge to refill.
I suppose that for every monster you can like upgrade them once they're upgrade to max. I think they have like 3 or 4. I think 3 charge projectile meters, and the speed, the rate at which those meters recharge themselves is extremely fast. So you have
what?
You can increase the speed. You can increase how fast that projectile meter charges.
All right, on evolution mode.
Yeah, on evolution mode. So when you're going against other players, especially the more advanced players, they probably have their monsters maxed out to where they have multiple projectile meters, and they're able to recharge them at a fast rate.
All right, yeah. That I know that now, but I'm talking about like the first time, This was before I ever knew you could do that with your breath gauge. I first noticed that on Versus Online mode, and this was I think 24 hours after I got the game. I was like, how the fuck did this dude get on expert level so fast?
Yeah, maybe. I think because isn't the online multiplayer just worldwide?
Yeah.
So you're probably going against other people in Japan who's maybe played it first.
That's what I'm wondering. Since we're playing the Western version, are we going up against people who are playing Godzilla Versus?
I believe so, yeah.
You would think that they connect people with who are other people who are playing Godzilla Versus, but if Godzilla Versus and the US PS4 version are connected, I think that's okay. That's pretty cool. But I was going to ask you. I don't know if you found this loophole like I have, but on Versus Online mode, it seemed, depending on which monster you use and which monster you fight against, some of their breath gauges, whenever it's used against you, somehow it refills your breath gauge, your breath meter in a second. Have you noticed that?
I have not played multiplayer mode because I recently got my PS4. I have yet to find a reason for me to purchase PlayStation Plus in order to play multiplayer. I know there's a 2-day free 2-day trial, but so far I just haven't had the opportunity to use that trial. But I have experienced what you've told me before, where if I was a certain monster being attacked by a certain attack, that attack actually recharges my projectile meter. Right,
and I'm not saying it goes for every single character in the game.
Right.
It depends on which monster you choose, but for me,
if I was like Godzilla and I was being laser attacked by, say, Mothra or King Ghidorah, I think that's when I would get a charge of some kind.
Right. And speaking of breath attacks, I think it's kind of unfair how some monsters have overpowered breath attacks and others don't, like Godzilla 64, for example.
That is true. They should at least if for a true fighting game, normally when a character is lacking in some attributes, they make up for it in others. So if a character was weak per se, that character would at least be much more faster than more stronger characters, or something to give it more of an edge. Or if a character had really good physical attacks, they would have very weak projectile attacks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's nothing really to compensate Godzilla 64 really. So by playing as 64, you're kind of putting the game on hard mode.
Right. Because the whole purpose of the game is to basically level up your monster. The problem is you can only level up your breath gauge. That's the only true thing you can level up. And the thing is, it doesn't make your breath attack any stronger. It just either lessens
the time it takes to recharge it.
To recharge it, or it just extends the bar meter. And that's it. I thought, when I first noticed that, I thought that it was something it's going to make your breath attack stronger.
Or it's going to make your monster faster or stronger.
Right, but no, it wasn't the case.
Or I was hoping that all the other monsters would get extra moves just like Godzilla, which, by the way, I don't think that was a smart decision to lock those moves, like the 180 tail swing, or being able to attack from the sides, or just attack with your tail from behind. I think those are essential moves that would have greatly helped you in the main campaign, as you're required to destroy as much buildings as you can in order to raise your power.
Those moves are actually automatically unlocked with Godzilla 64, which is probably another reason why I was able to max him out first. But yeah, I noticed it with the default Godzilla.
Because funny enough,
those moves are locked away.
Yeah, because funny enough, the PS3 demo to the first Japanese game had those extra moves, so I was really surprised to see them taken out at the start of the game.
Did they? Because I probably didn't know that they actually had those moves, so I didn't even know what the controls were to use those moves. That was another thing I had a problem with the Japanese demo. I didn't understand what anything on the screen was. I didn't understand what the breath meter gauge was. I didn't understand what the destruction rate was. I didn't even know where your health bar was. Because everything was in Japanese.
Right. Well, let's see. Now that I think we've talked we've said all we can about the game, about the controls, and how that, while they are basic and easy to understand, it's the moving Godzilla gets pretty awkward, and there's some serious imbalance issues, and there's plenty of opportunities to spam the beam attacks if they are fully upgraded. So let's get into the main campaign, which is called God of Destruction. Now, God of Destruction is split among 3 different modes. There is the Go Ashore option, where you play as Godzilla only, strictly Heisei Godzilla, because he is kind of the default Godzilla here in this game. You play as Godzilla as you go from level to level, destroying generators and increasing your height, and try to take out all these generators that run on G energy. G energy is something that humans have been powering their technology with ever since Godzilla's initial attack in 1954, according to this continuity. So Godzilla's back. He's like, hey, you can't be you can't be, using profiting off of my energy. So he goes in with his own unique take on cease and desist by destroying all these generators. So by the end of the game, you grow from 50 meters to 100 meters. And if you reach to 100 meters by the end of the game, then you go up against a final battle that we'll get into shortly. But there are 2 more options. There is the Invade option, where it is essentially God of Destruction mode, or it's essentially the Go Ashore option, except instead of Godzilla, you can pick any monster you'd like. And finally, there is Defend, where, again, you go through that same story, but instead of destroying generators, you play as either a mecha or as Mothra, and you protect the cities from these giant monsters.
It's basically King of Kaiju mode, but with a mech.
Yeah, basically, because King of Kaiju mode is the other main gameplay, game mode. So while God of Destruction is essentially the story mode, King of Kaiju is kind of like arcade mode, where you go from, it's just strictly fighting. Fight 6 monsters in a row. If you lose to a monster, then that's it. You can't retry, which I think is kind of
bullshit.
Yeah, it's kind of bullshit. I mean, like, why can't I replay that stage? Just like, is that real? I don't understand why. Even with like traditional arcade modes, if you lose a fight, you're given the chance to retry again.
Right, and you don't see your health bar in that mode either.
Right. For both modes, even though you can clearly see your power meter, you can see your height meter, your destruction meter, which we'll talk about that very soon, and you can see your the meter that raises the meter that follows, that shows how much projectile energy you have. There is no health meter, which is really confusing because this game kind of follows the what I like to call the Call of Duty method of being able to keep track of your health, where you have some level of health, but it gets to a point where once you're low on health, the screen starts to become reddish orange, which indicates that you're low on health. And by the time the screen becomes extremely, like, all orange, it's at that point where your monster has run out of health and it's game over for you. But if you are able to if you were to stop taking damage, then the screen starts to clear up again. But even though it seems like your health can charge, your health can refill, it never refills like back to full health. It always stays at that moment right before it starts turning orange.
Right.
So it's very difficult because, like, I don't understand why you can't keep track of your health, especially when you can keep track of your opponent's health.
Right, and Bandai added your health meter into Versus Online mode, but not the main gameplays. I don't understand why.
So with multiplayer mode, can you see all 3 health? Can you see, like, when you're playing the maximum amount of 3 players fighting at the same time? Can you see 3 health bars on screen?
I haven't actually played 3 against 2 other opponents.
Okay, but in like your
in your
one-on-one matches at least.
Yeah, I can see the other opponent's health meter when I go on one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see mine too.
Yeah.
And that's very, very helpful because, like I said, some monsters are overpowered, and it lets you know how far into your health is because uh, it's very, very essential because I always look back to my health and my opponent's health to see, how close we are in terms of health or how far am I or how ahead am I in terms of health.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I don't know why God of Destruction and King of Kaiju modes don't have your health meter presented.
Mm-hmm. Now, the way God of Destruction mode is structured is basically you have you start off going from level to level, and then you're able to, they get to a point where your path starts to branch out depending on which difficulty you choose. You can choose to take like an easier route, a normal route, or a hard route, and eventually, if you progress far enough, eventually it all transfixes on all the last like 4 levels are strictly at hard difficulty. And basically, depending on how well you do and how well you're able to increase Godzilla's height by absorbing as much G energy through, destroying generators, destroying military vehicles, destroying buildings of all kinds. If you are able to reach if you're able to reach Godzilla's height, as well as collect information, where in each stage there are 4 specific spots you need to stand in order to collect information, where you press the R3 button, I believe, and you just have to stand there while a human at some other point in the level is like recording footage of you. So you have to stay in that spot for like maybe 10 seconds. For me, like maybe 6 seconds. So if you collect at least 50% of all the total information data files, and you're able to increase Godzilla's height to at least 100 meters, you're able to play the maximum of 10 stages. The least amount of stages you can play in a single playthrough is 7 stages. So, because of the branching difficulty, the kind of basically King of God of Destruction mode is where you're able to unlock the majority of the monsters here. So, the game also kind of gives you an incentive to go back and play through these stages again and again and take different paths with the different difficulties in order to reach certain stages that have specific monsters that that you're most likely interested in unlocking. So it's a short story mode, but the thing is, it's hoping that it's short enough to where it gives you the incentive to go back and play multiple times. Now here's my problem. I'm not sure if you have the same problem, David, but for me, God of Destruction mode feels... I get that they're kind of going with also a similar arcade mode where it's short and you go in there multiple times to unlock more monsters, but I feel like the game is too short to be considered a full-on campaign mode, but it's too long to be considered a quick and easy arcade mode. So it's too short for, to enjoy it as a full game, but it's too long to be considered to have fun with it in short bursts of playtime, if you know what I mean. Did you ever have this problem?
Kind of, sort of, because, from this is where the repetition criticism really comes from me, because...
I definitely agree.
Because let's say that you complete it once and you decide to go back, you're playing in the same order, with the same buildings, and at times, sometimes the same... Actually, the same enemies as you did in the previous one.
Right. They don't randomize the monsters themselves.
Right. I remember hearing from the Japanese demo that people got random monsters when they first played it.
That is the case.
True or not.
That is true, because I remember from the Japanese demo of the PS3 game, there were the same stage I was playing. I believe they changed the random monsters. So sometimes I played one specific stage and I got Mothra Larva. Another time, there was another time where I got Hedorah instead, and there was another time where in that same stage I got Showa Mechagodzilla.
Right. They should have kept that with this version, because at least it would have been a nice surprise to see who you got challenged by. But now when you click whichever map you want to go to, they kind of tell you who you're going to end up fighting.
Right. But the random thing that they added into this game was the fact that at random points in the game, you face off against a 100-meter version of that monster. It's incredibly cheap and overpowered, and you will get your ass kicked.
Unless you play as 2014 or Burning Godzilla.
Or I think I encountered probably 7 100-meter monsters, and I was only able to beat one. And that was, I believe I was regular Godzilla, and I was going up against a 100-meter Hedorah. So basically what I did was I tried to keep my distance, spam the tail swing attack as much as I could, while also using the force field to get that motherfucker away from me.
The tail swipe is actually really good to like swap down some helicopters, especially for that bonus point challenge that they add on certain maps.
I found the nuclear pulse to be better at killing the flying enemies.
Oh yeah, that too. But
it's like a full 360 attack that has a pretty decent radius as it destroys everything around you.
Oh yeah, I agree. I also see the tail swipe as another beneficial factor to like getting those points.
Mm-hmm. And I do have to mention that there are certain stages that have you go up against either both the Super X 1 and 2, or if you're on a harder all 3 Super X's if you are at a more difficult stage. I really like that idea, especially then when there are certain stages where you fight against both Mecha King Ghidorah and the Gotengo, which I feel like was a pretty awesome addition. Although I found the Super X3 incredibly difficult to fight because it's the only one that actually flies higher than you. Both Super X 1 and 2, they kind of hover at head level, so you can only attack them via the tail swipe or the any projectile attack.
Right. I find the Gotengo more difficult to like handle because just like Super X3,
it flies all around. And it's actually a lot stronger this time around.
Right, and it has that beam attack, those missiles, the fucking driller.
Yeah. What's funny enough is because you're also fighting against Mecha King Ghidorah, I would sometimes just let the two duke it out while I'm just focusing on destroying buildings.
Right. So yeah, sometimes that does work. That the either the Super X or the Gotengo focuses on the rival monster.
Mm-hmm. Now, another major problem I have with the game is that it gets repetitive really, really fast because every stage, and I got this feeling when I played that Japanese demo last year, where every stage involves you having to destroy 1 to 3 generators, and pretty much nothing else. Just destroy the generators and fight whatever rival monster shows up to kill you. While at the same time destroying as many buildings as you can. So buildings, right. Generators, monsters. Buildings, generators, monsters. Buildings, generators, monsters. There is a point where there's one stage where you have to destroy submarines, which bob in and out of the water at random points of the stage. So you're kind of chasing these things. And I thought that, okay, that's some variety, but because the game requires you to play through this stage multiple times in order to unlock monsters and get cells in order to upgrade your other monsters, the game forces you. The game forces you to play through. The game is built around this main campaign mode, and it forces you to play through this in order to get the most out of the game. So by the time you're done with maybe like playing through this game the 5th time, you begin to, at least personally, I mean, for me, I begin to kind of like hate this game, where it's like, okay, so now I've upgraded Godzilla, oh wait, now I want to upgrade Jaguar, so now I have to go and play this game, and I have to start all the way at the beginning, all the way back to 50 meters, and just, go through the same old song once again.
I actually took off the music, because I found it highly annoying. I don't know why, but it's extremely cheesy. Really, really cheesy.
Yeah, cheesy and kind of generic. There are certain points where they use Akira Ifukube's tracks, and I thought that was a really nice addition, but I feel like they could have gone further. They could have used more themes. I was really disappointed that I did not hear the Super X theme.
Right. I mean, if they had, access to Ifukube's theme,
mm-hmm.
Why not make the majority of the soundtrack be the music from Godzilla films?
Yeah, I mean, even like Or like
Because all the music here is just in-house music.
Yeah, it's in-house music. It's kind of like a. It didn't sound like synthesized. Like it's not. It didn't feel like a real orchestral score, but it looked like they were using keyboards to mimic the sound of a orchestral score.
Basically electronics, yeah. And
Kind of like
I found this very funny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know the female announcer?
Yes, the what was she? I believe she was the commander of G-Force.
Or something. But every time, like, she would announce, like, how terrible the situation is for them.
Yeah.
There's happy music for you.
Oh yeah, dun dun dun.
I always found that very, very funny because, the character's feeling bad, but all of a sudden there's this happy music playing.
Yeah, I guess in a way it kind of makes you. I don't know. There are certain points where it kind of made me feel bad for what I was doing.
Yeah.
And let's see. Oh yeah, there is definitely the difficulty does tie into the destruction meter. So the more if you choose to destroy buildings in order to increase your height to 100 meters by the end of the game, the destruction meter raises. And once the destruction meter raises, it eventually gets to, let's say, you start off at level 1, so by the time you fill up the meter, it gets to level 2. You fill that up with more destruction, it raises up to level 3. And so the person who is in charge of G-Force, which changes depending on which difficulty you chooses, they will make the decision to, once you've done enough damage, they make the decision to upgrade the destruction level to, level 2, 3, 4, and they'll introduce new military vehicles to go after Godzilla. So I believe like level 2 introduces the jets, level 3 introduces the maser cannons, the level 4 introduces the freeze ray. Not the freeze ray. I think it was like it introduced like they looked like smaller versions of the Super X3. And so I think personally I didn't really feel that much of a difference. I didn't feel any more threatened by these newer additions whenever the destruction level was raised.
No, but apparently that also helps you in gaining size. The more bigger the military is, the more points you get apparently.
Yeah, because it provides you more vehicles to smash and gain that G G energy.
Right.
And so the 3 difficulties are represented by these 3 individuals who take command of G-Force. You have this one man who represents easy mode, and he's more sympathetic towards Godzilla. He's like, oh, let's not attack him that much. Maybe if we be nice to him, he'll go away, maybe. Which I think, all their dialogue, by the way, is absolutely stupid. It's, like, really bad and incredibly, like, cheesy. But, like, not cheesy in the good way, like the dialogue in Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, but cheesy in like the, are you kidding me? Did someone actually wrote this? But
like they're being serious.
Yeah, they're being serious about this.
You can't take the dialogue seriously.
Yeah. It's and so that's the person who represents easy mode. The person who represents normal mode, he's like this very nerdy guy, and he raises the destruction level at what's apparently he's always strict. He's always going by the book. He's like, well, we have to abide our laws, therefore Godzilla must abide the laws of nature. And so he's much more stricter on raising that destruction level, whereas the other guy was much more lenient. That's why it would take longer on easy mode to raise the destruction level. And then hard mode has this older woman who is quick to eat. He's kind of like has his like trigger fingers. He's like ready to raise the difficulty level at a much faster rate than the other 2 people. And I guess her dialogue is kind of the most tolerable out of all of them, because she's basically the no nonsense, destroy this person as much as we can type of person. But there was a moment where I think she delivered a line of dialogue twice, where it's like, this can't be happening, something like that, where she just repeats a phrase. But
the cheesiest dialogue that came from her that I found really, really funny was when she said, if you have time for tears, you have time for fighting.
Oh yeah, this is not the time for tears, this is time for fighting. And I think like the story attempts to have some sort of some sort of character arc between her and the G-Force operator lady, where she's part from a younger generation that has never met Godzilla before, while this older woman's certainly more aware of him. And so by the end of the game, they kind of realize, oh, maybe we shouldn't. It was wrong for humanity to, use G energy. Perhaps Godzilla will return another day to put humanity back in its place. So it kind of touches on the themes of Godzilla being, this force of nature that's made to like put nature in balance and put humanity back in its place. They attempt to do something like that, but it's like the execution itself with all this ridiculous dialogue, it kind of like undermines the moral of the story.
Right.
Let's see. Anything else about this? Is there anything else you want to say about the God of Destruction mode?
Actually, I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Oh yeah. Well, actually, it has something more to do with versus mode because personally, the whole reason why I even went back to God of Destruction mode over and over again was because I wanted to level up my monster and go up against people on versus mode. That was my whole purpose of going back to God of Destruction mode, so I can be better at versus mode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's definitely the game definitely requires you to go through God of Destruction mode as opposed to King of Kaiju mode, because the game, in order to get certain upgrades for certain monsters, it requires a specific number of specific cells and parts that you need. So if you try to go to King of Kaiju mode, you're going to go up against 6 random monsters in a row. So if you want to get specific, let's say you want to get Rodan cells, the best way is to go through God of Destruction mode in order to search for that one particular stage that has Rodan.
Right.
So anyway, sorry, continue.
I was going to say, actually, this should be advice to you, Andres. If you do choose to one day get PlayStation Plus, you gotta know how to use your monsters, because the people on
online,
some of them really cheat with the overpowered monsters.
Do they do the whole spamming thing?
Well, yeah, they have. Well, that's the only way you can fight and win, basically. But the most overpowered monster in the entire roster of this game is Biolante. And if you play versus mode, you'll see why, because she is a long-range monster. And me playing, 2014, every Godzilla here is more of a close-quarters combat type of character. And if you ever go up against, and this is for anybody listening, if you go up against fighting as Biolante, just back out. You're not going to win.
And from what I understand, I've seen Angry Joe's review of this game, and he mentions that they don't partner up players who are of equal level. Everything is randomized if you're going up against a stranger. Right.
That's okay. I mean, I don't mind a random matchup, but still, I don't like the fact that not only are you open to like attacks and things like that, some of the monsters are overpowered.
And the fact that you're going up against more experienced players who have a much higher ranking than you means that your ass is grass in about 2 minutes.
One thing when you go up against a player, it shows the number of wins they have, but it doesn't show the number of losses they have. I don't understand why it's like that. Because I would really love to see how much they lost. The only way I can determine whether someone whether I would win or not is if this person either has 0 wins or like single digits or something, or lower wins than me.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can determine that, whether someone might be weak or not. But then I would fight this person, I would end up getting my ass kicked.
Yeah. Now, have you had experience with other multiplayer games online?
Like this?
Yeah, kind of, like, be it Street Fighter or Call of Duty or whatnot. And, like...
Not...
Just wondering how, like, this would rank. Like, like I mentioned, from what I understand, there are certain games where you fight against random opponents, but they at least attempt to find someone closer to your level of expertise.
Not really, because the games I played online are mainly Halo and Call of Duty, and those are like big budget AAA rated games, and this isn't. So, Bungie and
Activision or Treyarch, whatever.
They put more effort and money and resources into those games, even though they're quick cash grabs. Bandai didn't hardly put any effort into this game. Everything seems half-assed, and
especially the thing that really bothers me about this, like I was okay with this being like, all right, this is basically a port of a PS3 game that's just simply upscaled, 60 frames per second, and there we go, it's on the PS4. But what really disappoints me is how they're charging this game for full retail price at $60. Even the PS3 version, which is only available for download, is also at $60. So
is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was like $50.
I believe Joseph Fazina mentioned that it was like maybe $60 on full price on PlayStation on PS3.
Because I know for a fact I paid $64 for this game.
I'm assuming that's $64. That's like 60 with tax, right?
Yeah, that's with tax.
Okay, yeah, same here. And I just think that's complete bullshit. I mean, I do know that Bandai and I believe their partner Banpresto, they have I know that basically whenever a popular fictional character in Japan gets a video game, be it an Ultraman game, a Kamen Rider game, or a Gundam game, most of these games tend to be very basic, where it's not a really in-depth game, and that the main appeal is simply getting the novelty of playing as these characters. And I do get that vibe here as well with Godzilla, where it's not a very deep game. It's not a AAA game. It's just a basic thing that's, for the novelty of playing as these monsters, and how only Godzilla fans would get that sort of enjoyment out of this game. But I feel like with other licensed games that I have played that featured the likes of Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and such, they feel like much more solid games with a much tighter foundation to which the gameplay is based on. Here, it seems like it seems to be kind of has the basic needs for what you want in a Godzilla game, where you walk around, you fight monsters, you smash buildings, and that's kind of like the base what all other giant monster games in the past have done. But I feel like while a lot of games, be it let's say King of the Monsters, War of the Monsters, got the Atari Pipeworks Godzilla games, they've all been fighting games. So while the gameplay is repetitive, that's the nature of a fighting game, that they're supposed to be repetitive because it's all about skill. Here, there is no skill, so that repetitive nature just kind of really taints the experience of this game.
Right. Because, like I said, with the Atari games, you had the option of creating combos. So those relied on skill. Yeah. This one, it really relies on, limited amount of buttons. Yes, spamming.
Let's see, and I guess the last thing is that we have to talk about. So we had went over multiplayer mode and how it's very basic, and a lot of times players tend to cheat because of the broken balance issues. And the last thing we have yet to talk about is diorama mode. Now, have you ever played with diorama mode, which is, for those of you who don't know, is a mode where you collect figurines and place them in certain backgrounds in order to produce a little photo or a little display of action, trying to recreate an action scene in freeze frame.
I actually have not played with diorama mode at all, because I see it to be pointless, especially in a game where it only has two official gameplay modes and one online mode. I felt like diorama mode was somewhat of a waste, and it could have been better replaced with something else. And I don't see the real point of diorama mode.
No, I have seen. And I have seen people on our Facebook group page, Toho Nation. They've shared what they've made on diorama mode, and it looks pretty interesting. But personally, I find it to be pointless as well, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they expect you to waste points that, or like those kaiju and mecha cells and parts that you would normally use to upgrade your monsters, they expect you to waste those same points on unlocking figurines for diorama mode.
Right. I have not wasted a single point on putting a figurine on diorama mode.
Neither have I, especially considering how long it takes. So imagine if you want to upgrade your favorite monsters and use diorama mode, imagine how many times you have to go through that repetitive campaign of destroying generators, fighting monsters, destroying generators. Even if you don't bother reaching 100 meters, you ignore the military, you ignore the building, that still destroy the generators, fight the monsters, destroy the generators, fight the monsters. By then, you would honestly be sick of the game at that point.
Right. Well, the one thing that for me it has going for is the versus online mode, in addition to the God of Destruction, King of Kaiju mode.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I had the PS3 version, I probably would never play the game again. But since I actually have the option of fighting people with some level of skill on how to use their monsters, rather than just a computer, I find myself coming back to it because of versus mode.
Now, I do want to at least compliment the game on this one thing, where I'm not sure how the PS3 version plays, but from what I played with the demo, it had a very choppy frame rate, which got worse and always lagged whenever an explosion were to occur on screen. However, I was really pleased to see that the game for the PS4 runs at an incredibly smooth 60 frames per second, and that's kind of all I asked for in terms of porting a PS3 game to the PS4, for it to run smoothly. And going through the options, I found that there is a 24 frames per second cinematic mode, which in the Japanese version of Godzilla Vs, it's called Showa mode. Did you ever bothered with that cinematic mode?
I was actually going to tell you about that there's an option to go to a normal mode, and oh my god, it's terrible. It's just laggy as shit.
So maybe that's the choppy frame rate I noticed from the demo.
Right, because when you switch back to 60 frames, it's really, really smooth. So that's probably why it took them an additional 6 months to localize it for the West. 6 or 7 months actually.
And I was happy with the frame rate, the normal frame rate. I am also happy to see the nice selection of monsters that they have. They all look extremely detailed. They look incredibly faithful to their original counterparts. I liked that Jet Jaguar, even though the Jet Jaguar song is not there, they kind of have a very upbeat Ultraman-esque song that plays during his his encounters in God of Destruction mode. I am curious as to why Jet Jaguar is the one that has such a specific way of unlocking him. As Godzilla 14, he's the final boss of God of Destruction mode when you're playing the normal version where you only play as Godzilla. But besides Godzilla 14 and Burning Godzilla, which are supposed to be those last two unlockable final unlockable characters, Jet Jaguar is the only one that has a special unlocking requirement. Which for those of you who are interested in unlocking Jet Jaguar, it starts off at the very beginning, the very first stage, and if you destroy at least 50 to 59% of that area, and then go straight for the generator, that's when Jet Jaguar shows up. And if you go through the easy path of the campaign, you have the chance to encounter Jet Jaguar 2 more times. So if you beat him the 3rd time, then there's a little scene where Godzilla and Jet Jaguar shake hands.
Oh, so that was a real scene? A real cutscene?
I believe so, yeah. And so...
I thought someone recreated that in diorama mode.
Who knows, maybe. But I have read up on IGN, I believe it was IGN or some other website, that's the way to unlock that one moment. But in terms of the selection of characters, my only problem is that for whatever reason, they decided that Mechagodzilla 74 and Mechagodzilla 75 were considered separate characters, despite the fact that Mechagodzilla 75 pretty much only has 2 extra moves, and I guess that headless, exposed brain version of him that I have never encountered before, but apparently that's in the game.
That's weird, because I was going to ask you something regarding 64 Godzilla and the other Godzillas, and this kind of ties in with what I'm going to say about that about the Mechagodzillas.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you and me and Bill, we had to talk about how when IDW got their license for the monsters, that apparently they only had the rights to specific incarnations.
Yes.
So maybe knowing Toho is noted for like pending trademarking almost like every single incarnation in every single movie.
Uh-huh.
That probably might have been the case for like Mechagodzilla 74 and then Mechagodzilla 75. However,
but why only?
This is where I'm.
Why were they interested in both versions?
I don't know.
When they're both virtually identical.
I don't know. But here's another thing that I'm confused about.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you and Bill told me that when like they get a specific version of Godzilla, they have to stick to that version.
Like,
so they get like
basically like
50...
if you were to have let's say Showa Godzilla, let's say they want to have let's say 68 Godzilla. He can't have any of the powers from any Godzilla after him, but he can have all the powers for all the Godzillas before him.
And this is where I'm confused, because 64 Godzilla has an atomic pulse.
Yeah, he has the nuclear pulse, just like his Heisei incarnation. That is weird. That you're right, and I suppose they only did that out of desperation because they couldn't. I guess they couldn't find an attack that could match him, because 64 Godzilla is essentially a clone, a complete clone of 90s of Heisei 90s Godzilla.
Well, every Godzilla except for Godzilla 2014 is basically a copy and paste of the default Godzilla.
Right. That is true. And which does kind of bother me, because if you remember, this is only a huge nitpick, a ridiculous nitpick from a hardcore Godzilla fan. I've always remembered the 64 suit as having his fingers like splayed out, like he's about to like grab you. But yet, if you noticed in the game 64 Godzilla, his hands are clenched into fists, because that's the same type of movement that the default Godzilla has.
Clenched, like not really clenched, but it looks like they're about to close.
Yeah, he has like closed. His hands are like closing. His fingers are like in a closing pose, as opposed to having his fingers splayed out.
Right.
I'm not sure if splayed out is an actual phrase, but yeah.
I didn't really notice that, because the thing that's so noticeable about 64 Godzilla is how derpy he looks.
Yeah. Like he does have the really cartoonish eyes, where it's like one big black pupil and then like a white eyeball.
Right. I mean, he looks really. I mean, live action, he looks really, really cool, but as animation,
no.
He looks really, really cartoony.
Yeah. I thought it was weird that they added dirt on his back.
Did they?
Yeah. If you notice, like the skin around his spines is a very light shade of brown.
I did not notice that, but I'm gonna play the game later on, because after talking about it, I really feel like getting back on that. But I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. I know that the reason why they made this game was based off of the success of the SH Monster Arts that Bandai has been producing recently over the last couple of years. And so a lot of these monsters do heavily borrow from the Heisei series, but there are a few monsters from the Millennium series, such as Gigan and Kiryu, which have also gotten SH figures, and several Showa characters like Jet Jaguar, Godzilla 64, and Mechagodzilla. So I'm wondering if the reason why there are some characters that have yet to receive figures is they're using this game to promote future SH figure arts toys, especially since
I wouldn't doubt it.
Especially since a couple of weeks ago, they announced a variant of a 64 SH figure arts with the dirt on its back, just like in this game. So I'm thinking,
conspiracy?
No. I think not, or maybe. I would love it if they and if this means that they're gonna do a Jet Jaguar figure, because I've always wanted like an articulated, posable Jet Jaguar toy.
Speaking of Bandai, I realized that why did they put 64 Godzilla, not any other Showa era Godzilla? I mean, I like 64. He's very indestructible. Recently, though.
Yeah. I guess because there's a toy of him, there's SH Figure Arts toy of him, so and this game was based off of those toys themselves. And the reason why
because
go ahead.
because Bandai produced the game, right? But Bandai also produced a few figures of their own. And a few days ago, I realized that the 62 Godzilla probably might be my first favorite design of Godzilla in terms of the Showa era incarnations.
The King Kong's the King Goji suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't refer to them by those
Shingeki, Japanese names.
You know,
yeah, I
by
know.
those Japanese names that I find.
Okay.
I find them difficult to pronounce, so I just go by the year since it's more easier. But 60 because a few days ago I actually found out that around 2004 Bandai put out like this memorial box set of figures, like a bunch of toys, a bunch of figures in this single box that costed like $1,000 in U.S. currency at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can just buy them for like $800 or $900. Mm-hmm. And there was this figure for the 62 Godzilla that I found was very, very cool looking. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but I felt like getting it. And so I ended up trying to find it, and no one was selling it. I mean, they were selling other figures from that set, but I didn't want those freaking figures. I wanted 62 Goji. Yeah. And then I realized that I spent like close to an hour to 90 minutes trying to find this damn thing. I'm like, I just realized the 62 Goji probably might be my favorite, because I wouldn't be acting this way if it was 64 Goji.
I guess so. So you and Bill both share a favorite Godzilla design, huh?
I don't know what it is about the 62 Goji, but there's something about that bulkiness, that chunkiness that just... I don't know.
That you can relate to?
I know Bill can relate because Fat Bill.
He's fat.
But I don't know. I think it's the fact that at times the 62 Goji looks like a Komodo dragon.
I would definitely agree. Yeah. I'm surprised that there's no Godzilla 2000 in here, considering they made a figure off of that.
Right.
But I suppose.
Well, maybe it's because Godzilla 2000 was, I wouldn't say the default Godzilla, but he was the main Godzilla of the Atari games. Him and 90s Godzilla.
I think that may have been... No, that wasn't at the request of Bandai. I think Simon Strange, the head of those Godzilla games, he liked 2000 a lot.
Oh, me too. I mainly play as 2000 whenever I get the chance to play those games, because I don't know why. When you play the Destroy Monsters Melee, 2000 and 90s have the same level of powers and the same game mechanics, but when you play Save the Earth, they're a tad bit different. Which I think is kind of cool, given that they're different incarnations, so they must have different skills and powers. Yeah. And they have the same rage mode in Destroy All Monsters, but in Save the Earth, 90s has that overpowered atomic breath that was used in Space Godzilla, but it's purple now. And 2000 still has that same stomp atomic blast thing he does.
Yeah, I remember that. So, let's see. Is there anything else we have left to say about this game before you wrap things up?
I just wish they made a better game, but still, I find it. Actually, I'll talk about this when we close.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go to final thoughts and ratings. And
me first or you?
You can go first since you're the guest here.
Okay, so I have a lot of more negative things to say about the game, but I'm addicted to it for some reason. It's like Destiny all over again. People couldn't stop complaining about it, but then suddenly they just couldn't stop playing it. And I still find the Atari game superior. I still think, in my opinion, Destroy All Monsters Melee is the best Godzilla game out there. And this game still has a lot, to step up to meet the standards of Destroy All Monsters Melee, because with the Atari games, you had the ability to sprint, jump, do combos. There were a lot of liberties presented to the player, and this game just limits the player to spamming, as we decided to call that. But still, it's kind of fun, and the only way that this would be enjoyable is to hardcore Godzilla fans like us. So hardcore gamers, this would be extremely frustrating, or for casual gamers, it would be just as frustrating. Because Bandai said that they made this specifically for the fans, so this is really more of a fan service type of game.
I suppose it does give you the basic the bare essentials of what you would like to do as Godzilla and all these monsters.
Right, but still, if this was like for the fans, they could have at least, amped up the gameplay, because in my eyes, I felt like the Atari games, Destroy All Monsters especially, I felt those were true made for fans, by the fans type of games, because, they were made by people who are non-Japanese and are fans, so they treated, the source material with respect, and they treated, the work with respect. They put a lot of effort into those games, with the exception of Godzilla Unleashed. I think Simon Strange admitted that was a piece of shit.
Yeah, or as he mentioned, he said it himself on an episode of Kaiju Cast, where that Godzilla Unleashed was like a game that had a lot of very, it would have been a very cool game with it would have compared to that of like a meal where you had all these amazing ingredients, but unfortunately you overcooked the game, so you overcooked the meal, so all those amazing ingredients don't even matter anymore.
Right. Oh, they should have stopped with Save the Earth or Destroy Monsters, because I don't see in what way how they could have, done something different that wasn't already done with Destroy All Monsters. Because Save the Earth and Unleashed, they seemed like basically they started getting more inferior towards Destroy All Monsters. Well, it's like the quality and the efforts kept on degrading.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens when Colossal Kaiju Combat eventually comes out.
How long has that game been in development?
I think 2 years, and right now the alpha build of the game is available on Steam Early Access.
Has it been 2 years? It felt longer than that.
Maybe it might be. Maybe it was back in 2012, probably. Maybe.
I remember
I don't know.
Probably... I remember Green Lantern time, which was around 2011.
That was definitely 2011. Okay.
But maybe this game would kind of like... I'm talking about the PS4 Godzilla game now.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe the negative effects of this game will probably show or teach the people behind Kaiju Combat, what not to do with the monster game.
Well, they're sticking to their strengths, and it's gonna be a straight up fighting game, and it's gonna be based on the engine, same gaming engine used for Save the Earth, and I think Save the Earth is going to be like the model for which this Colossal Kaiju Combat will be based off of. And I suppose the audience can check out Colossal Kaiju Combat for yourself. I believe it may be, I think, $5 for early access on Steam. So it's an alpha build, so it's not finished yet, and so but it is playable to some degree, and there are people who are making some really cool alternate skins for the 4 monsters that are playable in that game, in that alpha build, especially with Robo Komododon, which is like this kind of like this chibi looking version of Kiryu, and people have made like versions that look like Optimus Prime, like Megas XLR, like the Ava units from Evangelion. But enough about that. So let's see. Those were your final thoughts, right?
Well, actually, you know what other monsters I would have loved to see in this game? The more faster monsters, like King Caesar, Zilla, Titanosaurus.
Yeah. Baragon.
More obscure monsters, actually, yeah, because... Baragon was in Save the Earth.
Which, funny enough...
And Unleashed.
Funny enough, there is a kaiju, like a little kaiju encyclopedia mode in this game, and it provides information on all of the kaijus in the Godzilla franchise, including a lot of them that are not featured in the game. So I thought that was really cool.
Right. Has there been any mention of Zilla in the encyclopedia?
I do not think so. I haven't unlocked everything because I think the amount of entries unlocked in that kaiju encyclopedia depends on how much information you collect in God of Destruction mode. The parts where you stand still and wait for someone to record footage of Godzilla. And considering I've already done enough of those damn things to get to the final boss, I'm not going to bother with those things anymore.
Because they do provide a little bit of the, the creation, the development, and production of the movies and the characters themselves.
Yeah, like
I'm a tad bit...
I didn't know that Mecha King Ghidorah was not operated by a man in the suit.
Really?
Yeah. According to the Kaiju Encyclopedia, where it's like the thing was so damn heavy that it was considered unsafe for anybody to be in that suit, so they operated it with puppeteering, and it makes sense because if you look back at Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah never walks.
Oh, that's why. Oh, no wonder it's a projectile-based mech or kaiju.
Yeah.
Huh? Because in the Encyclopedia for Godzilla 2014, they said that the final battle with Godzilla and the Mutos, Garrett Edwards wanted it to resemble the classic Godzilla battles, man in a rubber suit. So they heavily utilized motion capture to make it look like it was men in rubber suit fighting.
Yeah.
To which I did not know that, because I just thought that motion capture was used on some parts of Godzilla's face. I did not know that half of that fight was motion capture.
So, yeah, are you done with your final thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess for me, Godzilla for the PS4, PlayStation 4 is a heavily flawed game. Basic mechanics are broken. It's very easy. The controls are either easy to exploit, which means you can either kick the monsters' asses or they do the same to you. The story mode, the main campaign is extremely repetitive, and you'll probably get sick of it if you try to play it for too long. But I guess deep down inside, I can never say that I did not enjoy this game to some extent. As a Godzilla fan, I did enjoy the novelty of being able to play as these monsters, recreating the attacks that they performed in the movies, and I did enjoy the times where I would just be mindlessly destroying mindlessly destroying buildings, or being as a heroic robot like Jaguar, Super Mechagodzilla, defending the city against these monsters. Overall, while this is a game that I completely agree with David here, that the game is really geared towards the most hardcore of Godzilla fans, because I think they're the only ones who would be able to get any sort of enjoyment out of this game. I would definitely not recommend you buy this game right away, because of how cheap. Because this is not a AAA game, I'm assuming that this game will definitely go down in price by November, December, around Christmas time. So I would say wait until the game drops down to maybe $40 as opposed to $60. And at which point, hopefully, then you will maybe be well prepared for this game's flaws, but will still enjoy the games for like the few merits that it does have. I would definitely recommend that this is the type of game that you play in short bursts, meaning that you play through King of Kaiju mode maybe 2 or 3 times, or play through God of Destruction mode once, and pretty much be done with it. Like it's good for if you play it anywhere from like 30 minutes to maybe an hour. But beyond that, that's when the monotony and the repetition starts to set in. So yeah, I definitely recommend playing the game in short bursts of playtime, which is why I'll be giving Godzilla an overall score of a 2 out of 5. So that has been our review for Godzilla for the PlayStation 4. Thank you everybody for watching my very first video game review. Let me know how I did, and thank you David for being on this channel once again. Alright, so where can people find you, David?
On Facebook or YouTube as Gorizard. Or Gorizard TV, either one.
And you can definitely find us on the Sons of Serizawa Network homepage. You can also check out our Facebook group, Toho Nation. And be sure to check out more stuff coming from this channel, including our review for Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, a couple episodes of Shoe Watch where I get to interview some pretty cool people, and hopefully more video game reviews like this to come in the near future. So thank you everybody for joining us. I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I am Gorizard.
And until next time everybody, take care.